So let's do a little thing here. Let's pretend that our assignment is to write a response essay on this advertising. So, looking at this advertising, I'm gonna look at it and I'm gonna sit and reflect on this a while. Some of my annotation or my notes are going to be my reaction to this piece. My first reaction was a giggle, then a little bit of a shrug, then a little pursed face. Then I saw that this is an older advertisement next to a newer advertisement, a more modern advertisement. And how I can tell is that the older advertisement is drawn, right, like a cartoon, where the younger or the more modern advertisement looks like a picture. We have someone who is subservient and someone who is dominant. In the older one, it's the man versus the woman, versus the more modern advertisement is the woman versus the man. Both are wearing ties, and the tie is what's being sold here. Then I'm looking at the tagline, or the line that sells the thing that they're selling. Show her it's a man's world, which is the tagline for the older advertisement, and show him it's a woman's world is the tagline for the modern advertising. The color of the robes are the same, and there's enough similarities here to know that the more modern advertisement is a parody of the older advertisement. Also, we see more tagline on the bottom right after the Van Helsing brand. We see it's a man's world, and then in the modern advertising we see it's a woman's world. So now that I have annotated this thing, there's a couple things just off the top of my head I'm reacting to. I'm reacting to maybe the switch between men and women, maybe how things have changed. It looks like maybe the older advertising is maybe from the 50s or 60s versus something that's a little bit more modern, maybe even 90s. I wouldn't go 80s, but maybe 90s, early 2000s. Which is interesting that this company continues from then. It's maybe a commentary of how things have changed. Maybe it's not a commentary about how things are equal, but who is more dominant now. Or maybe women's different roles now and men's different roles now. So let me go through. So I'm going to think about my intro paragraph, and I'm going to think about a hook. Now, you've probably heard about hook several times, and hook is really just another word for grabbing the reader. You can grab the reader several different ways. You can use a really nice quotation that makes sense for the thing that you're going to be talking about. You can use a rhetorical question. A rhetorical question is an unanswerable question. It's one of those things that you can't quite answer with a quick Wikipedia search. You can grab the reader by doing a story, but this is not like a fiction thing. So for those who love to write short stories, think of it more as an intro to the idea of what you're going to talk about. For example, you can say, when did things change? According to the Van Helsing advertisement, it changed recently, where women are now the ones who need to be catered to. See how that works? In the intro paragraph, you're going to name the piece you are responding to. So if you're responding to a poem, a short story, an article, the title of those are in quotations. If you're responding to things like books, movies, or videos, those things are in italics. You want to make sure you write the title correctly, and you write them whether it's in quotes or in italics, spell everything correctly, and you want to capitalize the first word and the last word of the title and the important words. If it's something like the, for, a, like articles and smaller words like that, you don't capitalize it. But bigger words, right? I like to say anything over 3 letters, but everyone's slightly different. You want to capitalize those. You want to name the person speaking or the person who wrote the piece, and you want to write their names correctly. I would triple check them because it's very easy to spell people's names wrong. And then you want to write your thesis. And all your thesis is your opinion about the piece and the 3 things you're going to be focusing on in that essay. That's it. I don't want you to overthink the essay or overthink the thesis, but I do want you to have a thesis. Just give me what your opinion is and the 3 things you're going to be focusing on in that essay. Put it in one sentence, one concise, well-written sentence, and put your thesis at the end of the intro paragraph. So let's talk a little bit more about the intro paragraph. So here's a possible first sentence to the advertisement that we just saw. Who reigns supreme, men versus women? This has been an argument for millennia. The argument continues in advertisement where the sales pitch has to appeal to as many people as possible. In the Van Helsing print visual, the artist created an advertisement that flipped the script, essentially saying that things have changed from the 1960s. And there you have it. Now you see the hook here. The hook here is a question, right? It's a rhetorical question. You can use, again, rhetorical questions. You can open it up like a story. You can use a quote that pertains to what is being discussed. Remember that the intro introduces the reader to what is going to be talked about. Don't underestimate the importance of the intro paragraph. Now we move into our thesis. Now I'm going to read this thesis to you, but before I do that, I don't want you to think that this possible first sentence plus the thesis makes the intro paragraph. Of course not. The first couple of sentences that I wrote there under possible first paragraph or possible first sentence are just the opening to the paragraph. Obviously, I'm going to write more sentences to link what I wrote at the beginning of that paragraph to the thesis. Again, the thesis goes at the end of the intro paragraph. It's the last thing I read in your intro paragraph. So here's an example of a thesis. The advertisement argues that women have now taken a dominant role and men are down in a subservient role. I can see this by the placement of the people, the old ad being placed right next to the new ad, and the slogan. So I've decided to talk about 3 things. The placement of the people in the ad, how the old ad is placed to the new ad. In literary terms, it's called juxtaposition, but we're not there yet, so I'm not going to use that word. I'm just going to say that the old ad is placed to the new ad. And the slogan. Now I want you to note that when I was annotating the advertisement verbally, those are some of the things that I picked out as I was verbally annotating. Things that just stood out to me, things that I noticed, maybe some conclusion I was led to based on what was there in the advertisement. And based on what I annotated, I just picked the 3 things that I was the most passionate about. The things that I really wanted to talk about in the essay. So those are the 3 things. And so my opinion is that the advertisement argues that the woman has now taken a dominant role and men are subservient. Now, is that true? No, it's not true. But this is what the advertisement is leading me to believe. It is my opinion based on what I have seen in the advertisement. So after I'm done with the intro paragraph, I'm going to go to the summary paragraph. I don't want this to be too long or too short. Again, I'm going to leave it to your best judgment. Long enough to let me know that you actually thought about it and that you actually read or saw the thing, but not too short that you are flying by. I want the highlights. Give me the big important details. The small details, you can leave them alone. But the big things that I'm going to need, especially when I'm reading your paper, I'm going to want. So write and give me what's important. I want you to give me the context. So for example, if I'm asking you to watch a TEDx video about something, perhaps I'm asking you to do it on truth or how people lie. Obviously, I want you to tell me that it's a TEDx video in the summary, because that's the context, right? That tells me that this is not somebody who just got in front of a camera and talked in front of it and put it up online on YouTube. This is someone who actually thought about their video, thought about their speech, and they were asked specifically. It gives them credibility, right? So that gives me context. And of course, using quotes from the video or from the piece that you're reading is actually perfectly okay. Make sure, however, you put them in quotation marks. All right, so we've done the intro, we've done the summary, now it's time for the body paragraphs. So the body paragraphs, you want to refer to specific points in the text or the piece that goes with it. I want you to explain it. And if you feel like you're over-explaining something, then you're doing it right. If you feel like, okay, I think I've explained it enough, or if you feel like you're a little bit under-explaining it, you haven't gone far enough. Now, this is a feeling. I can teach you how to explain things over and over again. I can tell you how many sentences to use, but really it's a feeling. If you feel that you're over-explaining it almost to the point of repeating yourself, then you've explained it enough for the writing process. Of course, you can paraphrase or quote anything in the video, also in your body paragraphs. This is also where you're going to give your opinion. And what you want to do when you're giving your opinion is you want to talk about the thing that you're pointing out first, explain it almost to ad nauseum, give me a good paraphrase or a good quote, and then spend the time on giving me your opinion. So you want one paragraph for each of the things you're listed in your thesis. So you listed 3 things in your thesis, so it's 1 paragraph each. Again, these are your paragraphs 3, 4, and 5. Again, within the body paragraph, you'll want to discuss the specific thing you picked to talk about. And I want you to do it in great detail. When you've done that, then give your opinion and do that in great detail. Because this part is important. This is the whole point of this essay, is to give me your opinion after you've reflected. And of course, you'll be able to use I, which is first person, right? And then once you've done your 3 body paragraphs, you are going to your conclusion. You're going to do pretty much the basics. You state your thesis in different words, summarize the major points, and you're not going to add any new info. You're done. So there's no need to add any more new info. I want you to also keep in mind that this is an actual paragraph. It's not a sentence. Don't just give me a sentence and say, and thus I'm done with this essay. Don't do that. This is an actual paragraph. Over and over again, by far, the 2 paragraphs that students mess up on and don't quite consider are the intro paragraph and the conclusion. It's the first impression and the last impression. It's your last chance to impress your reader or your grader and say, you know what? I know what I'm talking about. And let me remind you that I'm talking about all these things. That's what a conclusion does. So here's some things to keep in mind when you're writing this. So the entire paper, again, is 6 paragraphs. It helps if your reader watched the thing a couple of times. Don't just do it one time and say, I got it. You might want to watch it one time, maybe watch it again a couple of hours later, take some notes. Maybe you don't take notes the first time and you take notes the second time or the third time. Or maybe you take notes all 3 times because maybe something has changed. It helps if you address your question in the essay. So if you have a question that pops up and you're like, no, this doesn't make sense and it's not clear, maybe that's something you want to address in the essay. Maybe that's one of your 3 things that you're going to talk about. you should think about writing this over a series of days, not in a series of hours. For all the essays in this semester, you do not want to rush through it. You want to write them in sections. Personally, I would write the summary first. The summary pretty much is summarizing what you saw, what you read. And while you're doing the summary, you may think about, oh, that one thing that this person said, I may want to talk about it more in depth later. So as you're writing your summary, some things may come up. So I would write the summary first. Then I would write your conclusion. Then I would write the body paragraphs. Then I would write your intro last. And of course, the writing lab, like I am, they're always here to help should you need any help with writing. I hope this was helpful. I hope that you got everything that you needed. Let me know if you need anything else. Have fun.